What I will never let happen is a repeat of what happened in coal mining, where an industry came to an end and nobody had planned for the future, and we're still living with the consequences. We cannot allow that to happen. And I think there is an opportunity now to seize the next generation of jobs.
Stay right here, because what Keir Starmer just said live on national television has sent shockwaves through the entire country. No one expected this. Not the media, not Parliament, not even Starmer's closest allies. After weeks of silence, confusion, and growing public outrage, Starmer has broken cover with a stunning, unexpected announcement that could change the political fate of the United Kingdom forever. Just as the pressure reached its peak, with over 3 million furious citizens demanding his resignation and a fresh general election, Starmer finally stepped forward. But what he revealed has only made the storm around him far worse. Is this the desperate last move of a leader on the brink? Or the beginning of the end for Labour's fragile hold on power? The tension in the air was unbearable. For days, the media had speculated. Would Keir Starmer resign under the weight of the largest petition in recent political history? Would he finally cave to the fury of 3 million angry citizens demanding a new general election? Or would he stubbornly cling to power as his approval ratings crashed to historic lows? And then, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The Prime Minister stepped up to the podium, facing the cameras with a grim, weary expression. The room fell silent. Across the nation, millions of eyes were glued to their screens. And then he spoke. In a trembling but defiant voice, Starmer stunned the country by announcing that he would not resign. Not now, not ever, unless forced by Parliament itself. He acknowledged the record-breaking petition, calling it a powerful expression of public feeling, but insisted that the government still had important work to do and would continue in office. Gasps rippled through Westminster as his words echoed across social media, news outlets, and every corner of the UK. For millions of voters, this was the final insult. A Prime Minister who had promised reform, honesty, and renewal was now clinging to office in the face of overwhelming public rejection. The announcement instantly divided the country. Labour supporters, what few remained loyal, scrambled to defend their leader. The opposition roared with fury, and the public, already furious over broken promises, failures, and betrayals, erupted in disbelief. The man they had petitioned to remove was digging in his heels. This shocking defiance came after weeks of growing unrest. The cost of living crisis had crushed families across Britain. Starmer's broken pledges, on tuition fees, on public services, on tax cuts, had disillusioned millions. Trust in the Labour government had collapsed. And then came the petition, a monumental uprising of public opinion never seen before in modern UK politics. 3 million signatures, 3 million demands for a general election, 3 million voices crying out, enough is enough. But Starmer's announcement ignored this tidal wave of anger. Instead of offering change, he offered defiance. Instead of listening to the people, he warned of stability and continuity, as if these words could calm the storm raging outside Downing Street. He tried to justify his stay in power by claiming that the government's agenda was unfinished, that economic reforms were underway, and that leadership was needed in these uncertain times. But who believed him? Not the public, not the media, not even some in his own party. The backlash was instant. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags like general election. Now Starmer resign and 3 million voices shot to the top of trending lists. Commentators across television and radio slammed the announcement as tone-deaf, arrogant, and dangerously out of touch with reality. For the millions who signed the petition, Starmer's speech was not leadership. It was the desperate act of a man who had lost the nation's trust but refused to let go of power. Inside Parliament, shock turned quickly to rebellion. Senior MPs, some from Labour itself, were seen shaking their heads, whispering urgently, texting furiously as Starmer spoke. Anonymous briefings began to leak out immediately. "This is madness," one senior Labour figure reportedly said. "He's just made everything worse." The very foundations of Starmer's leadership were beginning to crumble, live in real time, before the nation's eyes. Meanwhile, the public reaction outside Westminster was even more furious. Protesters gathered at Parliament Square within hours, waving signs that read, 3 million can't be ignored, and listen to the people. Videos of angry citizens shouting, resign, at television screens flooded social media. The mood was turning dangerous. Even police issued warnings that disorder could spread if the government continued to ignore the petition's demands. Starmer's refusal to step down has opened a deep and dangerous divide, not only between government and opposition, but between government and the people themselves. Britain is now teetering on the edge of a political crisis, unlike anything seen in decades. The question gripping the nation tonight is simple but terrifying. Can Starmer survive this? Or has he just signed the death warrant for his own government? And in the background, Parliament prepares for what may be the most dramatic debate in its modern history. The petition, now formally scheduled for debate in the House of Commons, has forced MPs from all parties to confront the impossible, ignore the people and protect the Prime Minister, or obey the nation's demand for a new election and risk chaos. No one knows how this will end. But one thing is certain, the battle for the future of Britain has just begun, and Keir Starmer's shocking announcement may have been the spark that ignites the firestorm. As the echoes of Keir Starmer's shocking announcement spread across the nation, something even more dangerous began to unfold behind the closed doors of Parliament. The reaction inside Westminster was not the unity or relief that Starmer had hoped for. Instead, it was fury, disbelief, and the unmistakable stirrings of rebellion. For days now, whispers had been circulating in the corridors of power, Labour MPs grumbling in private, aides passing nervous notes, senior ministers exchanging dark glances. But now those whispers had turned into open defiance. Starmer's refusal to heed the will of 3 million petitioners was not just a blow to the public. It was a betrayal felt keenly by members of his own party. And in the shadowy committee rooms and private offices of Parliament, plans were already being made to force him out. Reports began to leak to the press within hours of the Prime Minister's speech. Senior Labour backbenchers, long frustrated by Starmer's broken promises, poor leadership, and collapsing public trust, were now openly discussing a leadership challenge. "He's finished," one unnamed MP told reporters. "The party can't survive this storm with him in charge. The public wants change, and so do we." These weren't just fringe voices or disaffected troublemakers. They were respected figures within the party, people who had once backed Starmer, who had hoped he could lead Labour back to power after years of Conservative rule. But now they saw only disaster on the horizon. If Starmer stayed, they believed, Labour's defeat at the next election was guaranteed, unless he was removed, and soon. The mood among the Labour MPs was turning ugly. In tense, late-night meetings, members plotted their next move. Letters of no confidence were reportedly being drafted. A leadership vote, once unthinkable, was now being quietly prepared. Some MPs hinted that if Starmer refused to step down willingly, he would be forced out through a brutal internal coup. The stakes could not be higher. Labour's future, and perhaps the political future of Britain itself, hung in the balance. And it wasn't just Labour. Opposition parties, Conservatives, Liberal Democrats, Reform UK, smelled blood in the water. Tory strategists were quick to seize on Starmer's disastrous announcement, calling him a lame duck Prime Minister who had lost the confidence of both Parliament and the public. They demanded a general election now, claiming that Starmer's refusal to resign proved he was clinging to power against the will of the people. The Liberal Democrats echoed the call, warning that the government's legitimacy was in crisis. Even the SNP hinted they would back a vote of no confidence if one were tabled. Across the political spectrum, unity was forming, not around policy, but around the belief that Starmer's time was up. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House confirmed that the historic petition, signed by more than 3 million furious citizens, would be formally debated within days. The upcoming session promised to be explosive. Already, MPs from across the aisle were preparing scathing speeches condemning the Prime Minister. Leaks suggested that some Labour MPs might even break ranks and speak against their own leader. A shocking, unprecedented move that would lay bare the depth of the rebellion within the party. Journalists whispered of secret alliances, late-night phone calls and frantic deals being made as rival factions jockeyed for position in the power vacuum that Starmer's collapse was creating. But the most chilling development came from inside Starmer's own cabinet. Multiple sources reported that senior ministers, people Starmer had trusted, relied upon and raised to positions of power, were now questioning his future. One minister, speaking off the record, confessed, "We can't defend this anymore. The public is against us. The party is against him. Something has to give." Rumours swirled that resignations were imminent, that key cabinet figures would step down in protest if Starmer refused to go. If that happened, it would be the end. No Prime Minister could survive the loss of his inner circle. The knives were out, and they were being sharpened fast. Outside the Palace of Westminster, the public fury that had sparked this crisis was only growing. Protesters gathered in their thousands, chanting slogans, waving placards, demanding Starmer's resignation. The petition that had begun as an online movement had now spilled into the streets, transforming into a real-world revolt. Police braced for unrest as tensions mounted. Across the nation, from Manchester to Glasgow to Cardiff, demonstrations were planned. The sense of anger, betrayal, and betrayal was palpable. This was no ordinary political dispute. This was a movement that threatened to shake the very foundations of British democracy. And yet, in the face of this storm, Starmer remained silent. After his defiant announcement, he vanished from public view, refusing interviews, dodging reporters, hiding behind the walls of Downing Street. His allies, those few who remained, struggled to defend him. They spoke of stability, responsibility, experience, but their words rang hollow. The truth was plain for all to see. The Prime Minister was isolated, abandoned, and under siege. As the hours ticked by, the pressure mounted. How long could Starmer hold out? Would his cabinet resign? Would Labour MPs force a leadership vote? Would Parliament collapse into chaos? No one knew. But one thing was certain. The rebellion inside Westminster was real, it was growing, and it would not stop until Keir Starmer was gone. The crisis was no longer about a petition or a policy dispute. It was about power. Who held it, who deserved it, and how far the people and their representatives were willing to go to take it back. As night fell over London, the plotting and scheming inside Parliament continued. In committee rooms and private offices, the battle lines were drawn. The Prime Minister's enemies were gathering. And somewhere, in the shadows, the next leader of the Labour Party was already waiting. As the rebellion against Keir Starmer intensifies, the political battlefield within Westminster is shifting rapidly. The question no longer seems to be whether Starmer will fall, but when and who will replace him. Behind the scenes, a brutal contest for power is already underway. Ambitious Labour figures, once loyal to their leader, are now quietly preparing to seize the throne. These secret contenders are calculating, manoeuvring, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The public may not yet know their names, but in the shadowy corridors of Parliament, the race for Labour's future has begun. Whispers have emerged from sources deep within the Labour Party machine. The names of potential successors are being passed in hushed tones between MPs, advisers, and journalists. The first and most obvious contender is Angela Rayner, the deputy leader herself. Once seen as Starmer's trusted lieutenant, Rayner has long cultivated an independent power base within the party. She appeals to Labour's traditional working-class heartlands, a demographic Starmer has disastrously alienated. Rayner's fiery style, sharp tongue, and populist instincts could make her the ideal figure to rally the disillusioned party, faithful, and reconnect with the millions of voters who now demand change. But Rayner is not without rivals. Another name rising fast in Westminster gossip is Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary. Young, media-savvy, and ambitious, Streeting has carefully distanced himself from Starmer's most unpopular decisions while building a reputation as a reformer who can drag Labour into the future. His supporters argue that he represents a clean break from the past, a fresh face who can challenge the Conservatives and win back Middle England. Yet his detractors claim he lacks the experience and grassroots support to unite a fractured party. Then there is Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor. Reeves has built a quiet but formidable reputation as a steady hand on the economy, a crucial asset in these times of financial crisis. Her allies believe she could reassure the markets, appeal to centrist voters, and restore Labour's image of fiscal responsibility. But critics warn that Reeves is too closely tied to Starmer's failed leadership, and that the public may see her as more of the same. But these high-profile names are not the only ones plotting. Insiders suggest that dark horse candidates are emerging, figures from Labour's backbenchers who have kept their heads down, bided their time, and now see an unexpected opportunity to rise. Veteran MPs like Yvette Cooper, known for her fierce opposition to Tory immigration policies, are rumoured to be testing the waters. Even Andy Burnham, the popular mayor of Greater Manchester, is said to be weighing a return to frontline politics. Burnham's Northern power base and outsider status could make him a unity candidate capable of bridging Labour's bitter internal divides. The stakes in this secret leadership race could not be higher. Whoever replaces Starmer will inherit a party on the brink of collapse, and a nation demanding answers. The next leader must confront not only the economic crisis, but also the political fallout of this unprecedented rebellion. They must heal the rift between Labour's traditional base and its metropolitan wing, restore public trust, and offer a clear, bold vision for Britain's future. It is a near impossible task, but one that every contender now dreams of taking on. Meanwhile, Starmer's inner circle is fighting desperately to keep control. Panic meetings are being held in Downing Street, as loyalists scramble to contain the revolt. Whips are working overtime to prevent Labour MPs from defecting to the rebellion. Offers of promotion, threats of deselection, and whispered promises of future power are being traded in a frantic bid to shore up Starmer's crumbling authority. But the tide may already have turned. Too many MPs have lost faith. Too many party activists are demanding change. The momentum behind the plot to replace Starmer is growing by the hour. And then there is the ultimate wildcard, the public. The 3 million-strong petition demanding a general election has not only rocked Parliament, it has emboldened Labour's rebellious MPs and put fire in the bellies of those who would challenge Starmer for the leadership. Polls show that Starmer's personal approval ratings are in freefall and that a majority of voters no longer trust him to lead. Any contender who steps forward now, offering hope, renewal, and genuine change, could capture the public imagination and transform the political landscape overnight. But this race for the Labour crown is also dangerous. Ambition breeds betrayal, and Westminster is no stranger to backstabbing politics. Alliances are being formed and broken in secret. Promises are being made that will never be kept. MPs are choosing sides, some out of principle, others out of self-interest. The risk of a bloody and divisive leadership battle looms large. If Labour tears itself apart in the process of replacing Starmer, it could hand the next general election to the Conservatives on a silver platter. And what of the Conservatives watching from the sidelines? Tory strategists are said to be delighted by the chaos consuming their rivals. The longer Labour remains leaderless, directionless and divided, the better the chances for Rishi Sunak's government to regain lost ground. But there is also fear in Tory ranks, fear that a new Labour leader, untainted by Starmer's failures, could rapidly turn the tide and pose a serious electoral threat. In this volatile and unpredictable environment, one thing is clear. The battle to replace Keir Starmer is no longer a question of if, but when and who. The future of the Labour Party, and perhaps the fate of the nation itself, hangs on the outcome of this secret contest. As darkness settles over Westminster, a hidden war is raging inside the Labour Party. A brutal, no-holds-barred power struggle that could destroy Keir Starmer's leadership forever. What the public sees, the speeches, the press releases, the statements of unity, is nothing compared to the raw treachery unfolding behind the closed doors of Parliament. Allies have become enemies. Friends are plotting in secret. And at the heart of it all stands Starmer himself, isolated, betrayed, and fighting for his political life. In smoky, dimly lit rooms, away from the cameras and journalists, Labour MPs and advisers are holding secret meetings late into the night. These gatherings, some in private clubs, some in quiet offices, are the front lines of the rebellion. Mobile phones are left at the door. Loyalty oaths are whispered. Here, the plot to dethrone Starmer is not only alive, it is thriving. Multiple MPs from the 2019 intake, the so-called Red Wall rescuers, are furious at Starmer's failure to win back traditional, working-class voters. Their message is chillingly simple. If Labour sticks with Starmer, the next election will be lost, and they are willing to risk everything to force a leadership change. In one shocking revelation, sources close to the shadow cabinet leaked details of a private meeting where senior Labour figures openly discussed Starmer's departure. Some demanded he be gone by the party conference. Others warned that waiting too long would allow the Tories to exploit Labour's weakness. There were arguments, voices were raised, but the message was clear. The knives are out for Keir Starmer, and they are being sharpened in secret. But betrayal is not confined to the backbenchers. Even those closest to Starmer are now hedging their bets. Advisers who once whispered promises of loyalty are quietly reaching out to the camps of his rivals, Rayner, Streeting, Reeves, offering their services should the leadership change hands. Whips tasked with ensuring loyalty are keeping their own lists of who will back the leader and who has already switched sides. The atmosphere is poisoned with suspicion. Every conversation, every glance, every text message is a potential act of treachery. And the rebels are not acting alone. Powerful trade union leaders, once the bedrock of Labour's financial and grassroots support, are also growing restless. Reports suggest that several key union bosses have held off-the-record talks with potential leadership candidates. They are furious over Starmer's broken promises on workers' rights, public services and economic reform. Without the union's money and manpower, Starmer's leadership could collapse overnight. The union threat is real, and it may soon become public. Meanwhile, Starmer's own attempts to crush the rebellion have backfired. Last week, sources revealed that his inner circle offered key rebels promotions in exchange for their silence. But the rebels refused and leaked the offers to the press. The news humiliated Starmer and proved to his enemies that he was weak, desperate, and vulnerable. Worse still, several MPs are said to have secretly filmed conversations with senior Labour officials, footage that could be released at any moment to expose the leader's crumbling authority. And yet, amid all this chaos, the public remains largely in the dark. To the ordinary voter, Labour appears united, at least for now. But that illusion could shatter at any moment. If one brave MP steps forward, goes on record and demands Starmer's resignation, the dam will break. Others will follow. The party could descend into open civil war with devastating consequences for the country's political stability. Even the Conservatives are nervously watching this drama unfold. Tory strategists are gleeful at Labour's implosion, but fearful of what could emerge from the wreckage. A new charismatic Labour leader could rapidly unite the opposition, seize the political momentum, and pose a serious threat to Rishi Sunak's fragile government. For the Tories, the best outcome is a long, bloody Labour civil war, one that leaves the party exhausted, divided, and unelectable. But for Labour, the risks are far greater. If the rebels miscalculate, if they strike too soon or fail to rally enough support, the party could collapse into chaos. Donors could withdraw, voters could flee. The fragile alliance of left-wing activists and centrist pragmatists could shatter forever. Labour might not recover in time for the next election. In their desperation to save the party, the rebels could destroy it. And in the eye of this storm stands Keir Starmer, tired, isolated, and increasingly paranoid. Sources close to the leader say he trusts no one, not even his closest allies. Every phone call, every meeting is now a potential trap. Starmer spends hours locked in private discussions with legal advisors, drawing up contingency plans for a leadership challenge. His speeches are carefully scripted to sound defiant, but insiders say he knows the truth. The walls are closing in. His leadership is doomed unless he can deliver a miracle. But miracles are in short supply. The 3 million-strong petition demanding a general election has fatally weakened Starmer's authority. His approval ratings have collapsed. His promises lie in ruins, and the party he leads is turning against him. Even now, ambitious rivals are preparing their leadership bids, ready to strike the moment he falls. One insider described the mood within Labour's headquarters as funeral-like. Staff whisper nervously in corridors. Senior officials speak in code, fearful of leaks. The sense of impending doom is palpable. And outside the building, the journalists gather, waiting for the first defection, the first resignation, the first public call for Starmer to go. This is more than a political crisis. It is a battle for the soul of the Labour Party, and the outcome will shape the future of Britain for years to come. As the dust thickens over Westminster and the air inside Labour's headquarters grows heavier with fear and uncertainty, the true scale of this unfolding political disaster is becoming shockingly clear. This is no longer just about Keir Starmer's broken promises or a rebellious faction within Labour. It is about the future of Britain itself. The stakes have soared far beyond party politics. At risk now is the trust of millions of British citizens, the stability of the government, and the credibility of an entire political system that has been stretched to its breaking point. When 3 million voices rose together in a single deafening cry for change, demanding an immediate general election, they were not merely registering dissatisfaction with a leader or a party. They were expressing a desperate plea to fix a nation that feels lost, betrayed, and forgotten. From struggling pensioners fearing for their livelihoods, to young graduates drowning in debt, from hard-working families squeezed by an unforgiving cost of living crisis, to small business owners left behind by indifferent policymakers, this petition is the voice of a wounded nation. And its message is unmistakable. We have had enough. But those cries for justice and change have not gone unanswered, at least not by the political schemers lurking in the shadows. Within Labour, the civil war now explodes in full force. Starmer's enemies have smelled blood, and they are moving with ruthless precision to end his leadership before the next election cycle. The atmosphere in Parliament is thick with betrayal. Whispers of secret alliances, midnight phone calls, covert promises of cabinet posts in exchange for loyalty to a new leader. All are swirling through the corridors of power like poison. The plotters are closing in, and yet the danger does not stop there. The chaos within Labour is spilling into every corner of British politics. Across the aisle, the Conservatives are not celebrating. They are panicking. Tory strategists are frantically revising their electoral plans, unsure whether Labour's collapse will hand them an easy victory or unleash a new political force that could destroy their fragile hold on government. Nigel Farage lurks in the wings, watching carefully, ready to exploit this disaster for his own ambitions. If Labour falls and the public mood darkens further, Farage could rise from the shadows and deliver the ultimate political shock, the destruction of both major parties. Meanwhile, the unions are preparing for open rebellion. furious at Starmer's betrayal on workers' rights, furious at the broken promises on public services, furious at the abandonment of Labour's traditional working-class base. The great trade union federations are threatening to pull their funding, their activists and their votes. Without them, Labour will crumble. The party may fracture beyond repair, breaking into warring factions of hard-left purists, centrist technocrats and regional protest groups. Britain could face the greatest political realignment since the collapse of the Liberal Party a century ago. And hovering over all of this turmoil is the shadow of the monarchy. Sources close to Buckingham Palace whisper of royal concern. The king has already intervened once, privately warning party leaders of the risk to national unity. But what happens if the crisis deepens? Could the monarchy itself be dragged into the chaos? Constitutional scholars warn that a total collapse of political order might force the king to act publicly, to call for calm, to insist on national unity, perhaps even to advise on a government of national emergency. Such a move would be unprecedented and dangerous. The very fabric of British democracy could be torn apart. As Starmer staggers from one humiliation to the next, the petition's power grows. Every news broadcast, every social media post, every heated debate in Parliament fuels the public's fury. The message boards of Britain are ablaze with demands for action. "We need an election now," says one commenter. "Throw them all out," says another. Even lifelong Labour supporters are turning away in disgust. "I backed Starmer because he promised change," writes a disillusioned former activist. "Now I see he's just another career politician. Never again." The opinion polls confirm the disaster. Starmer's personal approval ratings have collapsed to historic lows. Labour's lead in the polls, once a comfortable cushion, has evaporated. Worse still, the undecided voters, the great middle ground of British politics, are swinging rapidly toward other options. Reform UK, the Greens, even a possible new centrist movement. The nightmare scenario is unfolding. Labour divided, the Conservatives weakened, and Britain drifting into political paralysis. And the consequences for ordinary people are horrifying. Without strong leadership, the cost of living crisis will deepen. Inflation could spiral out of control. Energy prices could soar again this winter, plunging millions into fuel poverty. Public services, already on the brink of collapse, could disintegrate completely. NHS waiting lists could grow to impossible lengths. Schools could face crippling cuts. Local councils could go bankrupt. The dream of home ownership for young people could vanish forever. All because the political class has lost its way. In this atmosphere of fear and anger, radical voices are rising. Protest groups are planning mass demonstrations. Some whisper of a new wave of civil disobedience. Marches, sit-ins, even nationwide strikes. The government is already drawing up emergency plans to deal with public unrest. Police forces are on high alert. MI5 has reportedly warned of the danger of extremist groups exploiting the chaos. Britain teeters on the edge, not just of political change, but of social breakdown. And yet, amid the darkness, a faint glimmer of hope remains. The 3 million who signed the petition have shown that the British people have not given up. They care, they demand better, they want honesty, decency, competence. If their voices are heard, if Parliament responds, if a real general election is called, then perhaps, just perhaps, Britain can begin to heal. New leaders could rise, new ideas could flourish. The broken promises of the past could give way to a brighter, fairer future. But time is running out. Every day that passes without resolution deepens the crisis. Every moment of indecision, every failure of leadership pushes the nation closer to the abyss. Keir Starmer knows this. His advisors know this. His enemies know this. And soon the entire country will feel it. As this extraordinary drama reaches its climax, one question echoes across the land. A question that will decide the fate of Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, and the United Kingdom itself. Will Parliament bow to the will of the people, or defy them again? Will Starmer cling to power, or be dragged from office in disgrace? Will Britain find a new path, or stumble into ruin? What do you think will happen next? Will Keir Starmer survive this rebellion, or is Britain about to see the most dramatic political upheaval in modern history? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe our channel for more UK news. Thank you.